Hey everyone, this is Wes from the Tenet Podcast. We hope that you are all healthy and safe during this pandemic crisis. Todd and I are practicing social distancing. Todd's in Colorado and I'm here in South Dakota, and you can't get more social distance than that. This week we feature Rapid City Mayor Steve Allender, an interview I did with him back in December. We discuss city budgets and the municipal funding for the arts. As artists, many of us don't consider the ins and outs of public funding, so I hope you'll find some value in this interview. And more importantly, be safe and healthy. Our thoughts, love, and prayers go out to each one of you. And now, an interview with Mayor Steve Allender. This is the Tenet Podcast. I'm sitting down with Mayor Steve Allender. How are you doing today, Mayor?
Doing great.
Good. It's a beautiful day out, isn't it?
It's nice for December. Very nice.
We'll take this any day.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Bell for the most part.
Most of my growing up in Belle Fourche. I was an Air Force baby, and that's when my dad retired. That's where we moved, and I was almost 10 years old when he retired from the Air Force.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you started the police force there as well. Did you start right out of high school, or?
Well, about a couple of years later, in 1982, I became involved with the Reserve Police in Belle Fourche, and then in 1984 joined the department full time and worked there for a year and a half before I realized what a terrible mistake it was to be a policeman in your hometown, a small hometown.
Right. So then
I think you get away with it in a town like Rapid City, but in Belle Fourche it was not. It was a bad choice, and so I moved to Rapid City in the middle of 1985 and began my career here.
And it seems like you did well, and I think that's probably normal for most people. You did all sorts of different things in the police force, right?
I did. I was a patrol officer and a field training officer, and then I became a detective, and then a patrol sergeant, and then I was in charge of the evidence facility and crime lab, and then came back over to command a group of detectives, and then was the field services captain, which in charge of all the uniformed officers, and then in 2007 I was appointed police chief and retired 7 years later in 2014.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, going to become the police chief, out of all the different officers, what kind of set you apart, you think, as far as it was,
That's a good question. And I can take a stab at the answer because one of the things I say often is that the only advantage to aging is having another year to examine who you are and how you got here and what your mistakes were and that sort of thing. So having had a few extra years lately to look back on, I think probably what set me apart was a willingness. Mm-hmm. There's a known sacrifice in terms of social groups and job descriptions and responsibilities and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not for everyone.
Right.
And so I believed that I should try to make the next move, although my comfort level was screaming at me not to. And what it was about in the early to mid 1990s, I was a detective, and I swear it was the best job I ever had. It was just a blast. There was a lot of stress and responsibility, but I just had a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And but I felt like if I just wanted to have fun the rest of my career, I'm just going to stay here.
Right.
But I really felt like there was a need for me to try to move into the supervision track and go down that road because you learn in your job. And for me, I learned more from the supervisors who probably should not have been supervisors than learning from the ones who were clearly cut out for it.
Okay, yeah.
I saw the need, and I felt that there was some aptitude on my part for it, and so that's the way I went, and glad I did. Although it is true that it gets lonelier with every step that you go up the chain. Fewer friends, smaller comfort level among friends and that sort of thing within the organization. But I go back to a basic, elementary philosophy of, we're here for a number of years and then we're gone.
Right. Yeah.
So we get a chance to make mistakes or do things right. And the worst thing to do is not try to do either of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I'm glad it worked out the way it did. But, clearly there would have been an easier life for me had I chosen a different track.
Was the police chief that was right before you, did they kind of mentor you through that position, or did that kind of happen then?
Yeah, I was fortunate to, when I was hired in 1985, Tom Hennies was the chief. And he was chief until 2000. And then Craig Teason was police chief from 2000 to 2007. And so from 2004 to 2007, I worked directly with Chief Teason and had supervision over 60 to 70 people. So that was a good learning experience. And he was always the voice of reason.
Right.
And some things he would provide answers, and some things he would just tell me to find the answer. So there was that mentoring. And then when I became chief, he would check in once in a while, but would never come out of retirement to try to correct or anything like that. And we had breakfast together once a month, and just to check in on what's going on. But yeah, so there was that sort of preparation involved for sure.
Yeah. And he was another one that was, definitely served the community and the state as a whole. I mean, he had a gift of, or a passion for giving back to the community, seems like.
He did. He had a chemical engineering degree and went directly into the Peace Corps after college. And then from the Peace Corps, joined the RCPD. And so he probably never made as much money had he would have made as a chemical engineer. But I know from knowing him that was never a concern of his.
Right, right.
And so he was involved with the boys club for 30 some years and was very much a giver.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I've had a little bit of interaction with him with the Cheeseman Center when I was working there. So, and as a legislator, and just very approachable, very kind and giving. So,
yeah, a very unique guy. And when he got into the legislature, he loved it.
Yeah,
and he loved the debate and the process of lawmaking and the political side of it. And I thank God for those kind of people, because that to me is hard work and uncomfortable and frustrating. But definitely there's a need for someone to do it. And I'm glad there are those people.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you retired from the police department and you decided, well, I don't know if it was right away, but you made the decision to run for mayor. What was kind of the driving force behind that?
Well, I retired in May of 2014 and had the best 8 or 9 or 10 months of my adult life just being retired. It was a very welcome change, low stress. I mean, and literally my aches and pains started going away and everything was better. Yeah. And so there was a situation going on in city government that I was a little troubled with. And so the first step for me was trying to find someone to run for mayor.
Right.
And I approached about a half a dozen individuals out in the community who I thought would be appropriate. And I made a case for them to run for mayor. And they all, almost to a word, said the same thing to me. They said, "You're crazy."
Right.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started paying attention to how people view elected office. And so by the time I made a decision to run, which was February or March of 2015, I'd gotten the feeling that no one in their right mind wanted this job.
Right.
So therefore, I kind of felt like I had some moral obligation to give it a try. And I felt like I possessed the basic skills the general knowledge of government, but moreover, the willingness to do the right thing, even if that cost me some favor with the citizenry, or if that caused my approval rating to go down. And generally speaking, I mean, there's a lot of inspirational quotes on social media or websites about leadership, and it's always the quotes about how you should be inspiring to others and build others up, and on and on and on, and all those things are true.
Right.
But the reality is, if you've got that side of you, but you don't have a side that's willing to confront the ugliness and the dysfunction and do something about it, then you really can't be a leader. I think it's far easier to focus on the inspirational side of leadership than it is the down and dirty and the gritty part of doing that job. And so I see that as a primary job description, to not ignore things that are broken, instead engage in them and try to make them better. And my overall philosophy on leadership is to, have a vision, first of all, which to me, vision means to pay more attention to the next generation than your own.
Right. Okay.
It's not about next year or 5 years or anything like that. It's about the next generation. So have an eye for the next generation, plus be willing to build a foundation for someone else to stand on.
Right.
And you can't do that while you're grabbing all the glory for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this whole job is an exercise in humility, as well as, it requiring a little courage and sacrifice. And I guess I can wrap up how the job's been to me in one real sentence, and that is, when I was elected, I fully believed it would be the worst job I ever had. And it wasn't. Within a few weeks, I came to realize that people want to cooperate. They want to work together. Mm-hmm. They just need the proper environment to do that. They don't want to be punished for trying to do the right thing. So that was a pleasant surprise for me. And I can honestly say I have less stress in this job as mayor than I had as police chief. And one of our unofficial mottos up here in the mayor's office is that there's no emergencies in the mayor's office. There are trained and qualified people all over the city to take care of the crises.
Right.
And there can be no such thing as a political crisis.
But so, I don't think everybody that's been in this office, not necessarily here, but that takes the mayoral job, has that same sense. I think there's those ones that think everything's a crisis. And
right. Well, and I'll explain it like this. When I was a police officer, it was apparent that some people were attracted to the job of police officer because they liked being a bully.
Right.
Unfortunately, it took a year or two to really realize who those folks were, and then they get moved out of the organization and that sort of thing. But people who like adventure may be attracted to a job, with high power lines, or Right. So who's attracted to elected office? A percentage of people attracted to elected office are those that seek approval and attention, and they want to be a hero or create a legacy or something of that nature. And I think those are in my previous career, those are the type of folks that really don't do the rest of us any favors.
Right.
So while I felt in 2015 an obligation to run for mayor, I also stated in virtually every public debate that I don't care if people vote for me.
Right.
It's not what this was about. In fact, the easy thing for me would not to be elected. I can go back to being retired with a clear conscience.
Right, right.
So maybe I am the anomaly in that sense, but if you're in leadership, truly in leadership, I don't think you can afford to be worrying about your own skin. Mm-hmm. I think you have put yourself in a position to worry about other people's skin.
Right, yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I see with you is you're not afraid to make those tough choices, and I'm sure that came a lot of that came from the choices that you had to make as a police chief, or in the police force at all. So
it could be. I mean, I think we're all an accumulation of our experience and education and circumstances. And so I was in a career for 30 plus years where that involved problem solving. And to understand that government can't create utopia for anyone. And when they solve problems, it's usually on a short-term basis. And so, it's not like I'm deciding to invade another country or things of that nature, but the problems we solve here at City Hall, I think, are on a scale and scope that someone with decent problem-solving experience and success would do well in. But oftentimes, and I don't know if it's just me or if this is the way it is, but oftentimes you can easily see what the right decision is.
mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it's not the easy decision.
Right.
The easy decision is to put it off for a little while, see if it solves itself, not pay attention to it. And, I think that type of deception, that self-deception is damaging to communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you feel is what's kind of the big goals that you have for Rapid City in the next couple of years?
Well, there's a number of things in progress right now. Some of the tangible issues that we're dealing with, the development in the 500 block of St. Joseph Street,
mm-hmm.
formerly known as President's Plaza.
Yeah.
That was a colossal failure that took about 13 years from start to finish to fail. And a large part of that was the behavior of the city of Rapid City.
Mm-hmm. And significant money, if I recall.
There's some money, and the city ended up settling with the developer for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But it was just an example of not knowing where to be involved and where to stay out.
Mm-hmm.
And so our government organization, meddled in that development and essentially ruined it.
Right.
Of course, this is my opinion. This
Sure,
is not
sure.
science.
Right.
And so for the next development, we have explained this set of circumstances to the city council. They have agreed to stay out of it until they are needed. And so we have requested proposals and received them. We have chosen a proposal from a company that's got offices in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, and that's Lloyd Companies. And they have provided a proposed building for that lot. So now we have a letter of intent. We're working on a developer's agreement. And when the developer's agreement is ready, and that'll have all the details of what skin the city will have in the development and what the benefits are and that type of thing, then that will be when the city council's needed to weigh in on that development agreement. But with the President's Plaza, they were weighing in on things like, well, where's the developer getting his money?
Mm.
And what color will the windows be? And how tall will it be?
Right.
And we think it has too many or too less of this or that. And I don't think they really realized they were doing it, but for some reason, collectively, the message was, we're smarter than everybody and we all want to be heard, and we're 10 individual opinions on it, or 11,
Right.
including the mayor. And it just was a bad recipe. So we're taking this very slow, very carefully, and we realize that this is an important development for downtown.
Yeah.
So we're just being careful, because I think what's at risk is the public confidence in our ability to work with a developer on a public-private partnership like this.
Yeah, I can see that.
And, in city government, of course, there's a budget and all that kind of stuff. However, the real currency of our business is public confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have it, then we don't have anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So everything is a proving ground for the most part. So over the next 22 months, we're going to see construction of the Civic Center Arena.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be open in the fall of 2021. So we'll have a an expanded LNI in December of that year,
Wow.
probably an expanded stock show.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be done that soon.
Yeah, they're working like crazy over there, and they have a 22-month schedule start to finish.
Wow.
So they don't wait on a rainy day or a cold day. They're over there working. So that's good.
Yeah.
We'll see during the next couple of years the opening of the One Heart campus, which is important and something not without controversy because it, generally speaking, we're all being trained, like it or not, on how we think about politics by the behavior of the federal government.
Right.
And so we're getting all of our news on social media now. We don't even care if it's true.
Right.
It's just opinion news.
Yeah.
And so there's many of us, probably a large majority of our citizens who think they know what the facts are as it relates to impeachment or trade deals or anything of this. And I think the truth is really obscured by the nonsense that goes on in the federal system.
Right. Yeah.
And so then sometimes you see the state mimicking that behavior. And then you have almost like a bloodlust for it in the local communities.
Mm-hmm.
So we have local critics here who are relatively organized, and their job is to sit in the bleachers and criticize and condemn everyone on newfound party lines.
Right.
Or the new definition of conservative or liberal or whatever else. And that has no place in city government.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, the tables are exactly reversed of how they should be. The federal government and the state should be taking lessons on how to govern from local communities because we're the closest to the people being governed.
Yeah.
So when we're taking the temperature of the community on how they feel about priorities, we're not taking a vote on every idea that comes up, but we have to solicit public input. We have to be connected in the community to understand what people want. I keep this chart from a late 2017 city priority survey that we did, and it's got the priorities of the citizens and the city council separately on there. And I keep it here purposely so I can glance at it once in a while when I'm writing letters or creating budgets or that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a scientifically valid survey that was conducted. And so, that needs to be updated regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not a true democracy. Nowhere in America is a true democracy. And thank goodness we've elected people to use their discernment combined with public input and combined with reality to come up with policies and decisions that are in everyone's best interest.
Yeah.
But there's always a group ready to stand out and say, well, the elected officials aren't listening to us.
Right.
What they mean is to our minority group,
Right.
to our group of 26 people who meet every month and rail on the government.
Right. Right.
Or whatever. So it's been made a tougher job, I think, because of the federal nonsense. And, there's no one in America, no one who can sit back and say, I'm really pleased with the way the federal government's working. It's working just like it was intended.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's not, it's not broken. We've not devolved into a dictatorship or, some of the other terrible options that we've seen other countries use, but it's certainly not being conducted by ladies and gentlemen who have the public's best interest in mind. They have the party's interest in mind. So we, on their face, we reject partisan politics here. And I challenge people who are addicted to this partisan argument or social riot that we have going on to go back to the party values of whoever they are. If they're Republican or Democrat, go back to the party values and check yourself on what you're really promoting.
Yeah.
So I started rambling on this because of the bringing up One Heart. Well, there's a group of radicals on the right that say we shouldn't be helping anybody. And there's a group of radicals on the left that say we should be helping everyone.
Yeah.
And those are both minority groups of the larger community. And so I'm a Republican. In fact, I even consider myself a conservative Republican. But I don't think my definition of conservative is the same as what social media thinks it is today.
Yeah.
If you're conservative today, you have to hate people who are different from you.
Yeah.
You have to demean and destroy anyone who doesn't think like you. You have to be angry. You have to, none of those things are in the party values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So One Heart Campus is a way for us to protect our financial resources. When I say our resources, I'm saying the public's resources. Today, just in the police and fire departments in Rapid City, the annual budgets are about $26 million. $26 million that you would presume is what it costs to keep our houses from burning down and to keep crime out of our neighborhoods and that sort of thing. But no less than half of that money is going to human services other than fires or
police
law breaking.
Right.
And it's because the city government is the clearinghouse for everything that doesn't fit someone else's box. So it could be the drunken individuals we encounter every day. We have to get them from point A to point B, if we can, to go into at least a temporary detox, if not treatment. People who freeze to death outside, people who are underproducing in the economy, in other words, who are taking more than they're giving. And that's a huge financial threat for cities like Rapid City. A few years ago, Pennington County's Department of Health and Human Services did a study tracking 29 chronic homeless individuals in Rapid City. Tracked them by name, tracked on all the services that they consumed throughout the year. And the direct cost to the taxpayer for those 29 individuals was $1 million.
Wow.
Annually.
Yeah.
And these are chronic homeless people who are not seeking treatment, in fact, who reject treatment, who are living their life for whatever reason the way they choose to live it. But they're still taking services from medical and law enforcement and fire and social services and all types of community assets. So the question is that the way? Should we stay out of it and allocate $1 million for every 29 people that choose to be like this, or should we be doing something different?
Right.
And I think we can relate to what I'm getting at. If anybody's ever put out a fire on their stove or in their barbecue grill or in the backyard, you'll know that you spray the water or the fire extinguisher at the base of the flames and not the top. And what our public safety budget is doing now with $13 million annually is spraying that water at the top of the flames. It's doing no good, maybe keeping the temperature down a couple degrees. But we are not getting to the root of the problem. The One Heart Campus seeks to get to the root.
Yeah.
And it is not going to be a shelter where a bunch of addicted, deranged, dangerous people are going to be staying. That's what everyone's common fear. And then everyone in the country is going to realize we have this and they're all going to come here. Okay, that's a phobia.
Right.
That's an unjustified, irrational fear.
Right.
One Heart's going to focus on the couple thousand people in this town who are underemployed, living in poverty, staying on someone else's couch, staying in a shoddy motel room, unable to make it on their own. Because if 10% of those folks, these are my made-up calculations, but I think they're not too far off. If 10% of that population hits the streets because they lost a job or had an illness, we are overrun then with homeless people, and we have all of our priorities have to change in one day.
Yeah.
So financially speaking, it's a better protection for us to try to find a way to help those folks help themselves.
Right.
So that's a big deal, and that'll be open in the next couple of years. And early childhood education is another piece of the puzzle as far as spraying at the base of the flame.
Mm-hmm.
The root cause, and the data just builds and builds on this, the root cause of much of our social dysfunction in our communities today, with poverty and addiction and crime and mental illness, are the first few years of a child's life, when they're abandoned, when they're around drunks and conflict, and when they're ignored, not taught the things they're supposed to be taught. So South Dakota is one of 6 or 7 states who so far refuses to put $1 into early childhood learning, even though its future economy depends on it.
Right.
And may be the only thing that can break the cycle of poverty, because people who grow up in poverty have children who grow up in poverty, who have children who grow up in poverty.
Yeah.
And once in a while, there's an anomaly and someone is able to pull themselves out of that cycle, but it's a learned behavior.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's an anomaly. The ones that actually,
it is.
The stories you hear about, I grew up homeless or whatever, and now I'm, very successful or what, those are anomalies.
Yeah. So these things in a community like ours, when you're talking about these things publicly, they quickly get pulled into one of the political debates based on national rhetoric that says, oh, you're a liberal, you're a this, you're a that. And with early childhood learning, one of the fastest accusations we get is, oh, Obama tried this with Head Start and it failed, so you shouldn't even try it. Well, we're not Obama. We're not just talking about Head Start. We're talking about from the time a child's born, that child has a thirst for learning that must be fulfilled for them to succeed.
Yep.
And some parents today don't have the capacity, either in terms of the available time or energy or inclination to dedicate themselves to that child. They assume the child will raise itself just like they were raised, and that everything will be good enough. Well, it's not.
Right.
So again, a financial threat to our future. Those are big deals that we've continued to work on and will continue. And then the form of government, I think, is the big one now. We're allocating about a year to get to the bottom of what should be our best option for governing ourselves. And so a couple main reasons for doing this is, number one, there's, again, I think because of politics on the national scene, there is a distaste for general involvement in the governmental structure. So people want someone else to do it, just not them. So we're seeing a detachment of the government and the people being governed, and that's not the way government was set up in the beginning. People were meant to govern themselves.
Right.
So when you create a wide separation between the governed and the people doing the government, that's a recipe for disaster. That's one issue. The other issue is we're very much a slave to state law in government. We can literally only do what state law has decided in advance it's okay for us to do. And that thinking, that platform, which you might hear referred to as Dillon's rule of government, that assumes that Rapid City is the same as Newell,
Right.
is the same as Pierre, is the same as Tripp, or anywhere else, big cities, small cities, progressive, regressive, whatever, growing, shrinking. We all have the same needs and we can all operate under the same structure. And I think that's cheating our local community. Home rule will give us the ability to govern in more of a personalized or customized way that's best fitting for Rapid City. And who gets to decide what that way is? Rapid City does. The people being governed do. Because a change to home rule must be voted on by the people. Well, in order to vote on this type of thing, you're going to need to learn a little bit about it,
Right.
and form an opinion on it. And so that'll be up to us to get that word out, to let everyone understand what the options are on the table. But home rule gives flexibility, and it gives more power back to the people.
So when you have home rule, do you automatically have a city manager as well? Or is
No.
it doesn't always go that way?
No, you get to decide how the city is managed.
Okay.
It could be with an elected mayor, as in the case of Sioux Falls, or it could be with a city manager, as in the case of Aberdeen. Watertown is now switching from a elected mayor to a city manager. Brookings, Pierre, Pierre is home rule. I don't know if they're a city manager, but and you can have city manager without home rule, and you can have home rule without city manager, or you can have it all. And so that'll be the duty of the home rule committee to investigate those options and make some recommendation that will go to the city council. The city council will have to be very much involved in this whole process. They have a lot of heavy lifting to do. And then when everyone's comfortable that we've gotten to the formula that will be best for us as a community, then we put it on a ballot and hear from the public.
Do you have a kind of a time frame you would like to see, or is it kind of depending on this committee that's doing the work?
Well, it's largely dependent on the committee. However, once the committee is formed, we have to have an election within a year.
Oh, okay.
And that's according to state law. So, so we'll know around January 2021 or so what the outcome of this. And by the way, one of the options is to go through a several months or a year of research and decide that what we're doing right now is fine and do nothing.
Okay.
So, but this is about options. And again, this is one of those things where previous mayors have been interested in it, never got it off the ground. Previous concerned citizens have tried to get some action behind home rule and have been unsuccessful. So now I'm hearing from all those folks who want to be a part of this. And it's prior elected officials and it's current concerned citizens that want to help out.
Well, I think, I think back at the Civic Center expansion, I think the difference that you made and having a successful campaign is that you were out there all the time talking about it. Is that your view too? Because it was a hugely successful campaign where the previous mayor, it failed miserably.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I'll say that we're busy here in life these days. And so people really don't budget enough time to pay attention to what's going on. So you could have an important issue that you want to talk to the community about, and you may get 18 people to show up.
Yeah.
So what that means is, it would be nicer if you get 1,800 to show up.
Right.
But when you get 18 to show up, it means you got to have 100 of those. And so it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And you got to get in between people and their device in order to talk to them. You've got to get the message out in every imaginable way. And that again is an example of the detachment people are experiencing between they and their government.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, I didn't really get involved to go into city council meetings until the Walmart proposal came through when it was going to build in my neighborhood. I was trying to stop it from being in our neighborhood. I love the fact that, we built a new Walmart, but I just didn't want it in my neighborhood. So that's when I took action, and I think most citizens are that way. When it affects their backyard or whatever, that's when they stand up and, take action.
Yeah, that's true. And, and that's understandable. And most people are going to be that way. But in order to be successful, I think a good portion of our community has to be willing to stand up in defense of the next generation.
Yeah.
We've always been taught this as a kid, is that you leave it better than you found it. And today, you can you practice that. If you go to a campsite, when you leave, you clean it all up and make it better than when you found it. And, it's this personal responsibility and where the limits of that are. And so with many of us, I think the limits of our personal responsibility end at our front porch. We're going to pay attention to what's in our home and nowhere else. But and it's not that 50,000 adults in Rapid City all need to be running for public office at the same time. That would be a disaster. We'd end up electing someone who got 8 votes, and he'd be the top vote getter. But we certainly need more than what are interested right now. And who depends on that? I think the kids who are being born today depend on it.
I want to move forward a little bit because I realize we've been here, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No, that's fine. I got time.
Okay, so let's talk about the budget and the general fund, because public safety makes up nearly half of the city's budget, and I know it's about fire department and the police department, but it's even more than that. Can you? So what kind of falls under public safety, just so we can get a bigger view of the budget?
Public safety also includes things such as our financial obligation for detox, the county's care campus, that sort of thing, dispatch, emergency dispatch when you call 911. So everything related to that public safety is covered under that budget. But generally speaking, just police and fire, about $26 million of that budget. So that is, and of course, if you look back at this chart I keep in my office, this is a chart where citizens were given 1,000 virtual tax dollars to allocate towards their priorities. Survey, police services, number one. Street repair and maintenance, a close number two, and fire, a close number three. So public safety and street repair and maintenance are really way up there.
Yeah.
So that's where the money is being spent.
Mm-hmm.
Public safety everywhere takes up the lion's share of general fund budgets.
And there's a lot of different pieces that are pulling from that same pie. I mean, you got the public library, you have the Journey Museum, and there's a lot of pieces to this that I think the average citizen doesn't even think about,
Right. And public works, for example, that's all of the engineers in the street department, street cleaning, all of that kind of general fund. But it goes beyond that because the water treatment plant is not in the general fund. It's in an enterprise fund. So it's paid by the ratepayers, and the water production is not in the general fund. It's paid by the ratepayers. So everything that's not in water treatment or water production, for example, makes up 19% of all general fund spending. That's a significant number. Parks and recreation have always been a high priority here, 12.75% of all general fund spending. And library, 6%. Community development or planning and all things related to planning, 4.5%. And arts and culture, 1.15%. And, around budget time, it seems like I get accused of being against the arts or hating the arts. But $1.15 out of every $100 gets spent on arts and culture. And arts and culture was never a government responsibility. If you can imagine back to the old days when the first government employee was created, it was probably a sheriff.
Right.
Okay, well, the sheriff budget was not going to arts and culture that time. And then when it grew and we had a dozen city employees, and now it was somebody to dig the ditch to get this, rainwater to flow out, plus the sheriff, plus the jailer.
Right.
And as government grew over the generations, somehow, it's not somehow, it's specifically because the people being governed have a need to achieve a satisfactory quality of life, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the government structure has typically taken a position that some of that should come from the taxpayers at large, and not all left up to the private sector. So we have 1.15%, which makes that contribution into arts and culture over $700,000 annually in Rapid City. If you were to get $700,000 in small bills and lay them on the couch, I mean, that's a lot of money. So it's more money than most all of us will see in one place.
If you took that same money and spread it across the city, now it doesn't seem like that much, does it?
No, and you're trying
use that
to,
metaphor.
Absolutely. Across all the city services, parks and sewer pipes and roads and police and fire and libraries and all that kind of stuff, then we're broke. But arts and culture does play an important part in community life.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is kind of fun about it is there are those people that are very self-aware of the role art plays in their life. They're in love with it. They're addicted to it. They work at it every day. They enjoy it purposely every day. They appreciate it. That's a segment of our population. And then there are other people like me who wouldn't spend his time in an art gallery necessarily.
Right.
But who also, sitting right here in this office, has a picture on the wall that I wouldn't typically consider would be art. But it is, in fact, artistic, the way it's laid out, the way it's all set up there, even the framing. And I like things. I take pictures of landscapes that make me happy, and I save those and so on. So I'm enjoying art and culture without knowing it.
Right. Yeah.
But it enhances quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to say all arts and culture is out of the budget, and if the private sector doesn't then rebound and regenerate it all on themselves, then what have we done?
Mm-hmm.
We've not done anything productive. And to spread that $700,000 over the rest of the city, yeah, we could fill a couple more potholes and do whatever else, but that's not the difference between where we're at now and utopia. In fact, our city plan, our comprehensive plan that we're so proud of and that we take interest in, we've had a lot of public participation in, speaks very much so about the quality of life. And the current planning and zoning, those folks are who try to set us up. They spend all of their time and energy trying to set us up for a successful future. They know how cities are planned and how buildings need to be built in order to be pleasing and functional and so on. And they make all these recommendations and sometimes requirements. Many of those things are made with an artistic view. So we do have a commitment to the arts, but we're not claiming responsibility for all arts and culture funding.
Right.
Their public participation and user participation too is very important. An example, and I'm probably the king of using dumb examples sometimes, but the motion picture industry, they create a movie and they put $100 million into the budget, and then what do? They don't submit it to the government for payment.
Right.
They put it out there, say, whoever wants to watch this movie can help us pay for it
Right.
and make a profit from it.
Yeah.
So that model, I think, can be used in other areas. So not all arts and culture has to be free.
You kind of mentioned that the 1% goes to the arts, a little over 1%. How did that come about?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with priority-based budgeting. And what you're talking about, the reduction was in the Arts Contingency Fund.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so, but the city also has a responsibility to the Journey Museum, which is a city-owned facility.
Yeah.
And we've had a long-term arrangement to them to supply a subsidy for operations there. The Performing Arts Center, which is a real gem in our city, a historic building and a very nice
That's the one at the Dakota Middle School, what it used to be.
Yep. And then the Dolphin Arts Center, which is the Rapid City Arts Council. Again, a city-owned building donated by Mr. Dahl back in the 70s for a fine arts facility. And so we maintain those things. And then the Arts Contingency Fund, in my view, was always set out there for appeasement.
Mm-hmm.
It was to keep the smaller local arts agencies with some funds in the bank, but also to keep people from storming City Hall around budget time. This happened quite a few years ago where there was some question over arts funding. And the arts contingency was started with $102,000 in it at 10, 15, 20 years. I don't really know what year it was. And then that was given out to another local arts agency to distribute as a grant to small arts organizations. So over time, and I think we've really been forced into a priority-based budgeting mentality because of the Great Recession. We had a little bit of cushion prior to the recession.
Right.
And the recession has caused us to, to realize that we don't have an endless supply of taxpayer cash. So we have to prioritize. So general operating expenses go up. It costs more to employ a police officer or firefighter today than it did a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. When those costs keep going up, then the margin between our revenue and expenses gets thinner each time.
Yeah.
We often take a inflationary increased property taxes, and it drives people nuts. And we've calculated this out before, and it's usually 1% or something of that, but it's really 1% of 20% of your tax bill.
Right.
Because the city gets 20% of your property taxes. So this could mean an annual increase in funding of $6 or $8 to the homeowner. But if we're not doing that, we are falling farther behind every year in our ability to provide services.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other hand, we have a rising demand for the provision of services. And we're truly in a situation now where people want services, but they are still unwilling to pay for them.
Right.
So try this. Go into a store somewhere and take a product and be unwilling to pay for it.
Right.
What happens? I mean, that's a bad practice. So there's going to be a constant battle philosophically on what services are provided.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have the realistic ability to say, well, we think we pay city employees too much. We're going to cut all your wages by half. Okay, so then we'll see the same problem there that would be experienced in any industry. You're going to take the employees who are willing to do a job for very little money, and then they'll do poor service, and the good employees will go everywhere else, and what have we gained? So the budget is more than just a math problem. It is a philosophical problem, and it's a policy problem, and that's why it takes us around 6 solid months to work on the budget for the coming year. Back to the Arts Contingency Fund, that fund was reduced to $75,000 in order to stay with that 1.15%. The cost of doing business in these other arts organizations keeps going up.
Right.
So if we're going to stay at 1.15%, and the other way of saying that is, what could justify increasing the 1.15%? Because if we increase that, it has to come out of somewhere else. There is exactly 100% of revenues available.
Right.
You can't make that 110%. So where does it come from? And then we go back and we look at the priority chart again. And that says that although arts and culture is in the top half of priorities, it also comes in below social program support, street cleaning, snow removal, fire, street repair, maintenance, and police. So when it ends up being a complicated dilemma of how we try to keep everyone happy,
right?
Use an amount of money that rises slightly slower than the cost of doing business is rising. And so we're done doing more with less. We've whittled the gap between revenue and expenses down to virtually nothing. In fact, we're in a situation now where we've not been able to allocate the funds we promised ourselves we would put in reserves. We have less than what our mandatory reserve amount is because of the closeness of the revenue and expenses.
So you're able to take some money and put it in reserves. Is there? I would imagine there's a statute saying you can only put X number of dollars of your revenue into a reserve fund, or
well, it's a rule we made.
Always, okay.
It's a city ordinance about how much we put in reserves, and there's not even a philosophical agreement on what the reserves is for. Some people think it's for natural disaster. You know, realistically, it's to help us supplement in the event that we have an economic downturn. It'll get
Right.
us a few months down the road, but it won't.
Right. And talking about that, so the general fund's revenues generated from sales tax and property tax at about 72% of the budget is income from sales tax and property tax. And I was reading your budget proposal for 2020, and you had an interesting statement, and I'll just paraphrase it. It said that, well, it's almost a quote, but that one of the major challenges is our over-reliance on sales tax revenue that creates a nearly unpredictable long-range revenue forecast.
Right.
Can you talk about the volatility of sales tax?
Well, it seems like about 44% of our general fund revenue is from sales tax. So, and 28% property tax. So that 28%, that property tax revenue is far more predictable because when the market fluctuates, it fluctuates much more slowly.
Okay.
Where on sales tax, that can be a glitch in consumer confidence that could last a year or 2 years, and we could be down significantly. The largest portion of our general fund revenue could be affected dramatically by a terrorist attack or by bad weather or things of that nature. So,
downturn in tourism because of maybe gas prices or
absolutely.
whatever.
And when the economy starts to shrink and people are, whether it's reflected by gas prices or whatever else, I mean, people will travel less. We make our 44% of our money from travelers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if you were to go into a financial advisor and say, hey, here's where I want to, invest all my money, they wouldn't put 44% of your money in the most volatile investment.
Right.
They would put that in the most stable investment. So, and that's really a statement from me without a proposed solution. But the solution could be to shrink the sales tax and grow the property tax in terms of predictability. But the public has to be completely in favor of whatever we do with taxes. So we don't necessarily have control of a solution that can be quickly, easily implemented to take care of this. Now, one of the areas we can keep paying attention to is user fees, sales of goods and services, things of that nature. We only get so much in government grants and that sort of thing, licensing and permits. And, this is just an observation. I'm not proposing this or advocating for this, but I think realistically, if you just look at our revenue and expense portfolio and see what's going on around our state, I think it's largely because we insist on being the last state in the union to adopt an income tax.
Yeah.
And income taxes would create more revenue, be more fairly dispersed, where then we could afford to reduce some property taxes or sales taxes. But that is a too high of a political and philosophical hurdle to get by. In fact, just me saying this just now could generate a number of messages about how I'm a socialist or a communist or whatever else. So people are very concerned about this philosophically, but they're not concerned enough to get involved with the details of how we make the budget work year to year. And that's where my time is spent.
Yeah, and I've lived in a number of states like Iowa and Colorado, and California and South Carolina, and they all have state income tax. And even though I wasn't making a ton of money when I was working, let's say living in Colorado, it never hurt me to write that check to the state. So I really don't understand. Well, I understand why, because we bought into the rhetoric that we're overtaxed.
Right. And South Dakotans have a very low tax burden.
Yes.
Overall now. And that's one of the emotional arguments, like, oh, there's a tax increase of $5, therefore grandma's going to lose her house and she'll have to go sleep in a cardboard box. Well, that's really unfair to characterize it that way.
Right.
And so we're looking now at a school bond issue that's coming to the ballot in February, where we get a chance to vote on how we want the future of Rapid City to be. And we're going to vote, number of folks are going to vote right on the party line of all taxation is theft. growing up in a country school was good enough for me, should be good enough for anybody, or a more reality-based assessment is what's going on with the economy. How are we able to recruit people? How many of our kids are being bused across town now because of overcrowding? There's not even an agreement. When we say that some schools are crowded and we need more, there's a group of people that think that's a conspiracy and that it's a lie.
Yeah.
They think that attendance is down. But I can tell you that there's more than 100 kids bused from the North Middle School area to different schools because there's not room for them. And so what effect does the environment have on learning?
Yeah.
Can you put a double-wide trailer house out on a playground and create the same learning environment? Well, there's some reason to debate that. You certainly can't provide the comfort. That purchase is not going to be a 50-year, 80-year purchase. There's a lot of things, but I do know this. The number one deterrent for high-quality, very valuable employees coming to Rapid City, say in the terms of the medical field or other important services, is the condition of our schools.
Yeah.
And you can hear that from any major employer. So here's the reality. We're going to grow. Rapid City is going to grow. We've grown every year since 1900.
Mm-hmm.
We've established in 1882, and we had a little glitch in 1900, probably where some of the dissatisfied gold miners were going somewhere else. So we had a little backtrack just a little bit, and then from 1900 on, we've grown every year. Yeah. We are going to grow every year. It's very predictable, slow, and steady. We can't stop that.
And we've grown when the state was declining back in the 20s.
Yeah.
There was people moving away, and Rapid was still growing, I believe.
Absolutely. So we're a good area, and we're very attractive to retirees and that sort of thing. And so what do we do? Well, we can't put up a fence to keep people out. We can't put up signs at the entrance and say, no people with kids allowed.
Right.
And we can't support ourselves for the next 100 or 200 years with the thinking that we can get by not spending $1 on our future. Mm-hmm. So if, in fact, that tax increase that will occur from passing a school bond issue is going to put someone out of their home, then it was a matter of time before they're out of the home anyway. Right. And it probably is more reflective of the lack of planning or some other factor. The school bond issue will not cause anyone to have to move out of their house. But it is, in fact, a tax increase. And there's a number of issues that have to be corrected with these schools, and this problem's not going away. No. The only way it will go away is if we make it so discouraging to live in Rapid City that people start leaving. And who wins then? This is time for us to really get serious about our future, pay attention, how the next generation is going to treat us when we're all looking for a home. Mm. We're all looking for a place to live out our last couple of years. Just think about this for 1 second. In the next 15 years, the number of Americans over 65 years old will nearly double in the next 15 years. That's going to put a strain on our communities in terms of housing and assisted living facilities and health services and all that kind of stuff. We had better be in a situation where we can recruit a doctor, or where we can get, we have a cost of living and a economic environment where nurses and other care providers can justify coming here and living.
Yeah.
And we can't do that by having our eyes closed and our ears plugged.
Right. I was talking to Tom Johnson from Elevate the other day, and he was talking to Costco and another company. I don't remember who it was, but he was saying the reason they don't come here is because we don't pay enough either. Our income for this area is too low.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting. And then you add, schools and the fact that we're having problems there. Yeah. It's no wonder that people won't want to come here.
Right. There's certainly not one issue that makes cost of living the way it is. We have about a 15% higher construction cost in Rapid City as they do in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Explain it. No one can explain it. We have the majority of our homes being built in Rapid City are custom homes. We have we have, generally speaking, one developer building neighborhoods. We have other developers who are trying and getting more accustomed to that, but we don't have a lot of homes coming on the market.
Yeah.
So some of the prices of those homes are artificially high, which serves the seller.
Yeah.
So there's a desire to keep it that way, but it's not the seller market that's going to keep our economy strong and sustained. So there's a lot of factors that figure into who we are and how we're going to succeed in the future. And every single one of them requires us to look beyond ourselves.
Right. Well, I've been here over an hour. I really appreciate your time. I could go on all day with this.
Well,
this is interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Come back and we'll pick it up another time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.